Welcome back, everybody. We are going to continue with our series on perspective drawing, and we are still deep within 3-point perspective. I'm really covering a lot of stuff within 3-point perspective. So you can all watch the previous videos and see all the stuff that I've covered so far. In this video, I am going to talk about circles, curves, round lines, curved lines, and round shapes in perspective and how to draw them. Okay, so as you can see right here, I've got a circle template. All right, and then we've got an ellipse template because we're going to be dealing with ovals and ellipses. And then I've also got an assortment of French curves, which I probably will not use too much in this video because I want to save on time a little bit. So most of the ovals and ellipses you see me draw, I'm going to do them by hand, but I will talk about using ellipse templates and whatnot, French curves, when to use them, how to use them, that sort of thing. All right, well, let's get right into it. First, I'm going to do just some freehand stuff just to explain a few things. So let's say you have a perfect square. Okay, so basically I'm going to start by really just starting from the foundation level and building things up so that you can get some of these concepts, and when you go to do perspective drawing, you will know exactly how to approach creating circular objects in perspective. So foundation level, we have a square. Okay, I'm going to just freehand draw this because I just want to get the basic concept across. Let me make this bigger. All right, so you have a square. All right, when you get a square like this, you connect the two opposite corners with a straight line like that and like that. And when you do that, what that gives you is the center of that square. Okay, and then what you can do is from that center draw a horizontal line through that center and then a perpendicular line through that center. Okay, and what you have in essence are some reference points to work with. And if you take a compass and you draw a circle, or if you take a compass, measure the radius, you should be able to draw a perfect circle within that square, as long as that's a square, not a rectangle, a perfect square. And that's how you get a circle. Okay. Now, when dealing with ovals, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out a rectangle and bring this over slightly. All right, and let's say we have, this is a rectangle, but let's pretend that this is a square, okay? So two of these are in here, one on each end within this rectangle. You know what, let me just to really keep things as clear and as accurate as possible, let me just go for a more square looking shape. All right, so you've got the square here, you've got the square here, you've got this overall rectangle, right? And and you want this to have round edges or circular edges. You do the same thing here. Connect the opposite corners like so. That will give you the center. And because, you know, it's a perfect square, this is a perfect square, you strike a horizontal line straight through that center. It should go through the center of both, like that, and then give you these reference points. And then strike a vertical line just like you did here. You do that here, straight through the center, and you get these points. You get your radius, you take your compass, you draw your circle, you should get a perfect circle here, and a perfect circle here. So now from this point and this point you have this line which is now a tangent. Okay, let's go ahead and complete this circle. I'm doing it by hand, again, just to get the concept across. Okay, so don't be too rigid in your thinking, be a little bit flexible in your thinking to understand this. I'm really trying to keep this simple. We're trying to keep this just conceptual, and this just the knowledge of this basic construction is going to help you a whole lot in perspective drawings. All right, so that's let's see. So you connect the tangents and you get the shape with these rounded edges, so you get this long oval. So you get a long oval with this curve here and this curve here, and then these parallel ends, these parallel sides, right? Okay, so this is one form of an oval that we're getting here. Now, let's take this same rectangle. I'm gonna extend this down. And let's do the same thing to this rectangle that we did with the square over here. So what we're going to do is connect. So this is a rectangle with no squares in it. It's just a whole rectangle on its own. And we're going to connect the opposite corners just like we did with the square. Okay, and then we get that center, and through that center we strike a horizontal line parallel to this side and this side, and then strike a vertical line through the center parallel to this side and this side, right? Okay, so basically what we have here, what we're doing here is like, okay, we've had the square, now we've pretended as if we've stretched out the square to get this rectangle. So think that the circle in here is now stretched out along with this rectangle, and basically that's what we've got going on here, except we maintain the straight line, the parallel line in the middle here. In this case, what we're going to do is maintain the curve even as we stretch out this rectangle and stretch out this circle. So what we're going to get is, again, all the same characteristics, curves, sweeping. So we've got, let me make sure I mark those reference points. So you have a curve sweeping and slightly touching that edge, another one sweeping and slightly touching that edge, like that and like that. And what's going to happen is it's going to sweep, it's going to cut through this line and make its way over here to just sweep over. Okay, made that a little, overdid that a little bit. And that is going to give you that. It's going to give you that. And that's pretty much what you're going to get. You'll get an ellipse. Okay, so here's one oval. Here's another oval. One form of an oval, another form of an oval. This is an ellipse. This is another form of an oval, but with the ellipse you retain the curve throughout. whereas with this one you still keep this straight line, this tangent, and then you have these curved ends. All right, so let's look back at our template and look at that in comparison. And if you get yourself a pair of templates and really look at it and understand how this works, the characteristics of it, how it sweeps. It's a constant, continuous curve all the way. Okay, it never flattens out. It doesn't plateau. Like some people get into the habit of doing that, and then like it doesn't do any of that stuff. Like once it touches that center point, it continues to curve and go in whatever direction it's going in. All right. So just remember those characteristics, and remember that these ovals and this circle, you're looking at them straight on, and they are perfectly symmetrical. So what's going on this side is exactly what's going on this side. What's going on this side is exactly what's going on this side. Same thing here. And then if you strike an axis through the middle here, it'll be the same symmetry that's taking place. And of course, same thing with the circle. Either way, symmetrical. So just understand that that's what's happening. In perspective, that is not what happens. Let's look quickly at what happens when this shape is placed in, or this shape falls, this square. Let's say you get a square in perspective, or a square-ish object. Well, let's just say a square. So when we put this in perspective, and in our case 3-point perspective, we're not going to worry about the third vanishing point or any vanishing points. Let's just arbitrarily put the center, well, getting ahead of myself, sorry. All right, so you've done all your construction in perspective, and one of your boxes, or the sides of your boxes, looks like this, right? And it's square-ish, or it's a representation of a square. Well, what you do, because you want to draw that circle in perspective, is again, you connect the opposite corners, just like that. And in perspective, that is the center of your box in perspective, okay? And then working off the vanishing point, which will probably be on your horizontal line, you should get this. And since this and this will be corresponding to your right vanishing point, or at least my right vanishing point, this vertical will correspond to your upper or lower vanishing point, depending on what you're working with. Okay, and so you have those points of reference, and what'll happen is that you get your curve sweeping and touching and taking on this warped, distorted form. And that will be the one for the circle, right? So the one for this oval right here, again, you get that rectangle in perspective, and then because this is flat, maybe somebody's given you this as a model, you map it out, you get those squares mapped out in perspective, and then you do the same thing, corner to corner, to get the center, corner to corner, to get that center, and then if your perspective is correct, this is all on the same rectangle, you strike that line straight through, connected to the vanishing point, and it should go straight through both centers if this is accurate. Of course, this is by hand, so mine's going to be a little off. Okay, and then because we're using 3-point perspective, your vanishing point above or below, you connect it to that to get this. Make sure it goes right through the center. You get your points, and basically you draw in that circle. Remember, it sweeps there, just like this sweeps here, just like this sweeps and then cuts through this line and then sweeps through the end. The same thing will happen here as well. Follow this model as closely as, well, exactly. And you should get that, and then you connect both. And then in perspective, this will probably be like a slab, in with curved edges, okay? And so if you've mapped out your perspective and you have this side, then basically you're gonna have to transfer all this information of the squares over here, right? And then do the same thing and the same thing and make sure you connect this correctly. Okay, so you should get something like that. Okay, all right, and then with the ellipse, again, you have your rectangle, your full rectangle. Basically, it's the same example as this one, except we don't have the squares in there. So we will just go straight to connecting the corners, like so. And when you do that, where it intersects, regardless of how far back this is the center of this perspective rectangle, okay? Or this rectangle that's in perspective. This is its center. Use vanishing point 3 to strike a vertical line through that center. Use your vanishing point on the horizon line to strike this, to get this line through the center. You've got your reference points right there. And probably something, it'll probably come through the middle here somewhere. All right, so basically you should get something like that. Curve should sweep nicely through there. So when you're constructing, before you go grabbing French curves to go make these nice perfectly rounded curves, just lightly hand draw the ellipses and the curves in there, okay? That way you will, just by doing it by hand, you will get a familiarity with how this shape works. Just by simply hand drawing it in here lightly, you'll know how this behaves, right? Such that when you grab the tool to come in and perfect it, you'll have a better chance, you'll have a better idea of identifying what parts of the curve you're going to apply to different areas to make this whole. I hope that makes sense, but that's what you should get right there, okay? So that's the concept. That's the concept. So I am gonna go back to these first examples and try and do them in a way that, in a more technical fashion, so that you can actually see, like you can see it work near perfectly. Let me look at my time real quick. All right, I'm almost 20 minutes in, so I'm gonna finish this and I'm gonna wrap it up. Okay. And then in the next video, I will illustrate examples of these. I'll show how this works in perspective. I'll do an actual perspective drawing. So we've got our square. So I'm going to use my blue pen, and connect the corners, okay? Like so. Connect the corner. And sort of eyeballing it here, but should get that. And make that more parallel. And that, whoops, off by a lot. Haste makes waste, right? So there's that, and then I'll come here and do the same thing. All right, so I'm doing exactly the same thing I explained in the conceptual, in the roughs, where I just did it conceptually for you guys to see. So I want you guys to see that when I do it for real, it actually does work. Okay, eyeball, let me get the center. Something like that. There we go. Make it a long ruler. Whoops. And just draw that line straight through. That did not go through the center. That's horrible. There we go. I placed it, I laid it down wrong. That can happen sometimes. Okay, and then I'll do the same for what's going to be the eventual ellipse. You do it from the center. Show all that's lined up. There we go. That's better. I'm gonna eyeball that. I sort of. There we go. All right. So, with my compass, I'm going to come here. Move this, and I'm going to get my radius. That. Like that. Oops, shift it a little bit. There we go. Oh boy, bring this back in. Come back here. That, and come on, there we go. Whoa, went way off. My compass is a little loose. Don't know what that's all about. Okay. All right, something like that. Now, with the rectangle, we'll do the same thing I just did in the previous example, and I'll just lightly mark the edges. And then just sort of it gets ever and ever closer to this. It doesn't flatten. Make sure it doesn't flatten. Mine's beginning to flatten a little bit, so let me bring that under control. That should just touch the surface. Glance that point and sweep right back up, and this should do the same thing. Again, I'm trying to hurry up and get this finished, so it's going to be less than perfect, but that's what I should get as a rough drawing. And then what I'll do is what I can do, and what I want you guys to do is this is my recommended approach. Just sketch it in there once you've got the measurements in there laid out, once you've mapped everything out, and then just sketch in the curve, make sure it looks right, you know, make adjustments here and there, and then come with the French curves and go ahead and draw the circle. But this, since this is an ellipse that you're looking directly at and it's symmetrical, you can go ahead, if you have, say, a big ellipse template like this, if you have one that fits, you can just pretty much just plug it in there, I'm sure. Just draw it in there and it should be fine. But once it's in perspective, you definitely have to rely on things like the French curve or the flexible curve, which I don't have right now, and I can show you that later, or you'll see me using that in another video. Okay, so I'm gonna stop right here. I just wanted to get this concept out, so in the next video I will do a 3-point perspective drawing, and in that video you'll get to see me apply some of these concepts here in that video, and you'll see how that works. All right, so this is the Visual Arts channel, Stractify. Leave comments and questions down below, and I will see you in the next video.